I'm pissed about what happened there. It should have never been able to happen. It's a travesty that it did. And the whole country was lied to in the aftermath by Kimberly Cheadle coming out and saying, they didn't have, counter sniper teams on the rooftop because there was too much slope, and yet the roof was like this. Like, you had old men walking across the rooftop from Congress, 2 days later. Like, give me a break. We were lied to. The fact that somebody got on a roof with a modern day rifle with modern day optics at 130 yards from a former commander in chief and somebody who was very well going to be this, commander in chief based on polls, what was insane. And they've never gotten to the bottom of it. I mean, they got into the cell phones of every January 6th protester, grandmother who walked through the Capitol and took a selfie, but somehow they can't get into the phones, the multiple phones of somebody who tried to assassinate, my father. And, the body was cremated about, 4 days later or 5 days later. I mean, I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. And I am wholly unsatisfied. And I go into it in pretty great detail in the book.
All right, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report, and in this case, it is cliche, but my guest needs no introduction. But I will give him an introduction nonetheless. He is the executive vice president of the Trump Organization and author of the new book, Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. Eric Trump, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. The book just went to #1 in just about every category, so I never thought I was going to be an author. But obviously, we're making some kind of statement right now in the universe. I'm pretty proud of it.
Is that the ultimate comeuppance for these people, that they tried to destroy your family, which obviously is the whole backing of the book, and yet the book has sold well already? Is that proof that Trump has won?
They try and destroy us, and yet we win. And I think people are voting with their pocketbooks at this point. And no, it's amazing. I never thought I'd be #1 in biographies, #1 in memoirs, #1 in government, #1 nationally. Across every category. It's a lot of fun. But, listen, Dave, I came up with the name, 2 years ago, and they tried everything they could to destroy our company, obviously, which I run. I run the Trump Organization. I run every single one of our family assets. I run everything outside of Washington, D.C. They impeached my father the first time. They impeached him the second time. They made up dirty dossiers. I mean, they made up the Russia hoax. I was right in the center of that when they said that we had secret servers communicating with the Kremlin. They gagged us. They tried to silence us. They threw us off of every social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They weaponized every DA and every AG in this country to come after us. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history, 112 subpoenas for doing absolutely nothing wrong. I was a far cry, my friend, from Hunter Biden, who's has a laptop from hell and, cocaine and heroin and, prostitution. And yet they wanted to kill us. They wanted to debank us. And I had the title Under Siege, and then I saw what happened at Butler, and I saw what happened 12 weeks later at a golf course I run in Palm Beach, when they tried to kill my father the second time. And then I saw what happened to our dear friend Charlie Kirk. They want to eliminate all of us, you, me, all the independent voices, all the loud voices, the Charlie Kirks, my fathers. They think if they do that, they can win this movement. They can destroy this movement. And they can't, and they haven't been effective, and they just had the biggest political disgrace in American history. And I could not be more proud of all of that.
If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury could actually be worth millions, and most people have no idea. Insurance companies love to lowball claims, offering way less than what you deserve. That's why there's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across 50 states. They've been fighting for people for more than 30 years, and they don't settle for lowball offers. Just recently, they won $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all way above what insurance companies offered. And the best part, it's completely free unless you win. No upfront costs, no hidden fees. It takes only a couple minutes to see if you have a case. Did you know you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just one click? It's super easy. Just go to forthepeople.com/Rubin or click the link in the description and pin comment. So before we get into all of that, I must ask you, since we are of a certain age, the two of us, Under Siege, the title. I mean, is Jean-Claude Van Damme going to come at you for a lawsuit on this thing? It's a pretty solid movie. The sequel wasn't bad either, On the Train. I mean, how'd you get the title?
I'm very disappointed in you. It wasn't Jean-Claude. It was none other than Steven Seagal.
Oh, sorry, Steve. It's Steven
Albeit it was
Seagal.
the same era.
Oh God!
Now, if I named this Bloodsport, it would have been a great Seagal movie. All right, but this is named after none other than the
oh my God!
the great Steven Seagal, who was fantastic. And no, I think we all grew up watching Under Siege, right?
Yeah.
On the battleship with
Great
Gary Busey
movie.
and
Yeah.
the rest of them. And
Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones was the bad
Tommy
guy.
Lee
There
Jones.
we go. Okay, man, I just lost all. I blew all
Hey,
my
trust me,
80s.
I was under much bigger siege than that battleship was with So
Well, all right. So let's dive into some of that stuff because you mentioned right before we started recording that you said to me moving to Florida was the best thing you ever did, and obviously I very publicly moved to Florida as well. But your father, obviously, you guys were in New York originally. You've always had Mar-a-Lago and all that, but that this place has become the center of freedom, and it sort of exemplifies. You guys built, I lived in New York City. I lived on the Upper West with the Trump skyline on the Hudson River and, Midtown and all the stuff. I mean, you helped build that city. The city's about to turn into a communist nightmare, whatever adjective you want to put to it. Is that the perfect example of the divide in the country right now?
100%.
Yeah. Kicking
100%.
you guys out to go that direction.
I mean, think, Letitia James literally had an entire campaign of just, she's going to come in as Attorney General and just come after our family. I mean, she said it. She said on video, I'm going to go in. I'm going to sue the hell out of him. I'm going to go into the office in the morning. I'm going to sue him. I'm going to leave. And you know what I did? I took the company and I left New York, a state that I absolutely adore. I mean, we have skyscrapers all over New York. I built a lot of the city. My father built the entire city. I can't tell you how much of my life was dedicated to New York real estate. I know it as well as anyone. And yet I pulled all our executives out of there because I said I can't do it. I had the same thing with one of my kids in school. I mean, the indoctrination, the nonsense. When my father went to Walter Reed, I talked about it in the book. He has COVID, and I'll never forget. I got a call from the principal, actually a text message from her in the middle of the night. She probably had a couple glasses of wine. Don't even think about dropping your kids off at school. I go, excuse me? Like, why not? Our faculty is petrified of getting COVID from your family. I go, listen, my father's in Walter Reed, but I live in New York. I live like 230 miles away from him, and I go, this is insane. I mean, and the great irony is a week later, she got COVID and had to shut down the entire school. But this is the craziness we were dealing with. I mean, we were dealing with Alvin Bragg. We were dealing with Letitia James. They were coming after us. They were trying to bankrupt the Trump organization. They were trying to get us debanked in every way possible. Every day I was getting another subpoena. And finally, I just look at Laura and I say, what the hell? Why are we still here? And honestly, moving to Florida has been the greatest thing I've ever done.
How was that first round? 10 years ago, your dad comes down the escalator. He had been through a lot of the battles before, but, I know your brother a bit better than I know you. How was that for you guys when it really started to turn into hate? Because it's one thing for your dad to dive in, having the career he had, been through all the media stuff. Obviously, you guys had been on TV and were well known, but you're younger, you have young families, all of that stuff. Like when it first started, because now you've been through it, so it's easier to talk about. But what about that beginning phase when it started going crazy?
Well, I think honestly we were all naive, everybody. But I do remember when my father called me. He goes, get the kids, bring them up to my office, and that's obviously when he told us he was going to run for president. He goes, honey, kids, we're going to learn who our true friends are. We're going to do so very quickly. We're going to learn who our true friends are. And we went down that escalator, and I think you could safely say that there's probably no one that stood on the stage like I did, right? Among anyone. I mean, I was on the stage the entire 10 years. I was everywhere with him. I did thousands of events in every swing state. I was on TV every single night. I never thought they were going to lash out the way they did. I mean, he asked me to obviously run the Trump organization, and I thought I'd be building hotels and doing great things. Instead, I was keeping the animals off of the company. I mean, I literally spent 80% of my time, keeping the Russia hoaxes, all this fake nonsense away from our company as they were trying to indict employees for doing absolutely nothing wrong, as they were, calling up every single big bank, Capital One, to try and deplatform us for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And they put a siege on our family, but they were also putting a siege on him. They were putting a siege on the movement. They were putting a siege on our country, all because we dared to stand up and fight for basic things like the Constitution, the First Amendment, freedom of religion, wanting to not get absolutely ripped off by every country around the world, believing in red, white, and blue, thinking that's an absolute disgrace to have people like Colin Kaepernick, kneel for the national anthem when you're making $30 million a year and so on and so forth. We were a family that did not need politics, and we were doing this because we were fighting for the heart and soul of this nation. And and they came after us viciously. They wanted to see us in jail. They wanted to see us bankrupt. They wanted to see us destroyed. They wanted to see our family split up, and they would use every bit of law enforcement to do it, whether it's raiding Mar-a-Lago, whether it's raiding Melania's closet, whether it's raiding Barron's room, whether it's subpoenaing me. We probably spent $400 million in defense of the company on sham cases, all because they were trying to take us out. And honestly, Dave, obviously, it didn't work, and we won in spectacular fashion.
Were there any moments where you thought they actually were going to get you guys on something? One moment that I know really turned me, because I did not support your dad the first time around. I voted for the Libertarian candidate, which I totally regret in retrospect. But I remember once when I started to come around, it was during the height of the Russia nonsense, and there was some congressional hearing about it, and you and your brother were live tweeting it. And I was like, there is no way that any of this could be legit, and they'd be live tweeting about it. It would be such a ridiculously legal, insane thing to do. I was like, there's just no way. But was there any moment that you thought they're going to get him on? Not that he did anything, but they'll just figure out a way, or they're going to get us, or we're going to lose the business, or any version of that?
So many. I mean, I sat with my father every day in those courtrooms in New York. The Mershon, the Engoron trials, and I'll never forget. I sat there, and everybody in that courtroom, every journalist, left and right, knew that the case was a sham. We've had all of them overturned since. Yeah. And they got up and they read 34 guilty, felony counts, guilty 34 times. And my father stands up, turns around, we shake hands, we walk out of that courtroom. We actually went right to a fundraiser. That's how hard we are working. We'd be in court by day and fundraising and on TV by night. But in the car, I'll never forget, he goes, honey, I don't know how, but we're going to win this thing. And he wasn't just talking about the court case. I mean, he was talking about the entire election. And I said, we either win the White House or we're all in jail. And by the way, Dave, and that's for doing nothing wrong. That's the system that was weaponized, against us. We either win this, we either win the White House. It's a White House or a jail cell. And that's what they wanted for all of us. And, here you are, a year later, a year and a half later, and we've won every single one of the cases. I mean, they also imposed a $600 million penalty on us for doing nothing wrong when, every bank that we ever had in the company went in and testified that we're the greatest borrower that they've ever had, and that they've never enjoyed an account more than ours. And somehow using a crooked judge through a crooked system, they get a $600 million penalty. Again, another thing that's totally been reversed by the appellate courts. But yeah, there were a lot of dark moments. I mean, Butler was another dark moment when I see my father on the ground bleeding, with blood flowing down his face and his arms. And there were a lot of dark moments, and exactly 48 hours after that moment, I was the Republican delegate. I was a delegate for the state of Florida. Yeah, they made my father the Republican nominee for president of the United States. And so, you want to talk about highs and lows in a campaign? We saw every single one of them.
That Butler day. So, tell me a little bit more on the personal side about that, because we all think of him as the president and the leader of the country, and he's become sort of an avatar of everything that people either love or hate and all of those things, but he's your dad. He's the grandfather to your kids.
Yeah. Well, I go into it in great detail in the book because I'm pissed. I'm pissed about what happened there. It should have never been able to happen. It's a travesty that it did. The whole country was lied to in the aftermath by Kimberly Cheadle coming out and saying, they didn't have, counter sniper teams on the rooftop because there was too much slope, and yet the roof was like this. Like, you had Jerry, you had old men walking across the rooftop from Congress, 2 days later, give me a break. We were lied to. The fact that somebody got on a roof with a modern day rifle with modern day optics at 130 yards from a former commander in chief and somebody who was very well going to be this, commander in chief based on polls, was insane. And they've never gotten to the bottom of it. I mean, they got into the cell phones of every January 6th protester, grandmother who walked through the Capitol and took a selfie. But somehow they can't get into the phones, the multiple phones of somebody who tried to assassinate, my father. And, the body was cremated about, 4 days later or 5 days later. I mean, I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. And I am wholly unsatisfied. And I go into it in pretty great detail in the book.
How did you explain what happened to your kids, or what kind of conversations were there around that sort of thing?
Well, my kids were sitting on my lap. We were at home. I was working on an email, and and obviously it was in the background. You'll remember that was Butler was all the channels were speculating that that's when he was going to pick his vice president.
Right,
and so everybody was live streaming it, and my kids were on the lap, and they're watching Grandpa as they see him go down. They see the blood, and Laura grabbed them and ran them into the other room. And I'm sitting there, my face is practically touching the TV screen. I mean, I'm trying to see if he has chest wounds. I'm trying to see if, he's wearing a dark suit. So, you get hit in a certain spot, you're not going to be able to see it because of the dark color of your suit. You're not going to be able to see the blood. And I mean, thank God he turned his head when he did. But again, I remain wholly unsatisfied about what happened there.
Debt from credit cards isn't an accident. It's a system designed to keep you down. The banks profit, the creditors win, and hardworking families lose. But there's another side to the story. PDS Debt has already helped hundreds of thousands of Americans fight back, cutting debt, ending the relentless calls, and putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket, not the bank's. PDS Debt goes beyond the numbers to understand your unique situation and create a personalized plan just for you. There's no minimum credit score required, and their goal is simple: help you save more and pay off your debt faster. PDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and has thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Take control of your finances today and get your free assessment to find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/Rubin. That's pdsdebt.com/Rubin. Is some of the irony, is it just baked into the equation? Meaning, you mentioned the Biden family before, and we could talk about the auto pen and the corruption and the cover-up around his mental health and Ukraine and all of those things. But also the family stuff versus you guys, who I feel like I know decently well. The last time I saw you was probably about 6 months ago at Mar-a-Lago, because you guys do Curativity and you take care of all of these kids that have cancer. I mean, it was one of the most wonderful events I've been to in the last couple of years. Like, seemingly such a good group of people. And that's such a complete stark difference between the Biden thing, and yet you're treated in completely the reverse ways. Like, it's almost beyond, it's beyond the pale in a sense.
Well, I mean, I think I took 4 cases up to the Supreme Court over the emoluments clause, and I'm laughing about that. You sold a glass of wine to somebody at market rates who walked into Trump International Hotel, sat down the bar, you didn't know who they were. Emoluments clause, right? And yet, I've never seen somebody have so many entities for, somebody that doesn't have a business. Like what does Hunter Biden do? Like, what does Joe Biden do? Like, what product do they have? Like, what I do? I sell hotel rooms, right?
Yeah.
We're in the golf business. We're in the commercial real estate business. We're in, we're in residential and everything else. I mean, what product are they selling? Why do you need, dozens of entities that are all linked in kind of clandestine ways? This web of entities. Like, what's he selling? Like, where's Hunter Biden's website? I'm just, as a business guy,
I know he's selling very expensive paintings for access for his dad, right? I mean,
you know what?
It.
I'm sure I could be a phenomenal painter. I ought to start finger painting, and maybe I should start selling paintings right now. And by the way, if I start selling paintings right now, I'm sure the media would have no problem with it, right? If I found some nice Chinese national and sold them a nice painting for $1 million, I'm sure the media would be A-okay with it because I'm a wonderful artist. I mean, give me a break. No one buys it. It's disgusting. It was the greatest cover-up. But Dave, here's what I'll tell you, and I say this all the time, and no one's focused on this. The media has lost all their juice. If you go back to 2016, the media had real power. The media has no power anymore, and that's because of independent voices like you, and because I was willing to stand on the stage, and people like my father, and people like Charlie Kirk, and the Joe Rogans of the world, and the Patrick Bet-Davids of the world, and so many guys who have loud, independent voices that aren't controlled by anybody. Will say whatever's on their mind. Will say whatever's right at the right time. The media is so diminished that in 2024, the Democrats don't have the same. They don't have the same game plan before. Before they could call up and say, you know what, Trump is colluding with Russia, and guess what? NBC, ABC, they would all run that for years on end. Trump colluded with Russia. And we would have to dig ourselves out of this horrible hole that was just totally false and defamatory, and they could get away with it. The reality is no one listens to the mainstream media anymore. We've killed them. I mean,
does your dad like that? I assume your dad agrees with that, but he obviously still likes poking the bear, making fun of CNN or Jimmy Kimmel or that kind of stuff. So does he just like the idea of it still more than the sort of grip that they have over everyone's minds? I mean, I think we all kind of struggle with that.
I don't think he likes poking the bear. I don't think he likes poking the bear. I think he freaking loves poking the bear, especially at this point. I mean, yeah. I did a few weeks ago. I put it on the Trump 2028 hat. I posted a picture with nothing else said. I mean, people went crazy. Elon's retweeting it. Everybody's retweeting the thing, and the media is going crazy. They're melting down. Does this mean that you plan to subvert democracy? Like, I'm literally just trolling, the mainstream media and having a great time doing it. But it shows how kind of gullible they are. It also shows shows who they are, and exactly, you know, the fact that they really are the lobbyist party for the Democrats, and they've lost all their power. And so, you know, first term, it was very hard. Like, you know, they started a narrative. It was very hard to beat that narrative off you. Now it's like they can't even start a narrative. Like, they don't have enough respect anymore. People don't trust them. They don't have the hearts and minds of the American people, because the American people realize that they've been lied to over and over and over again. And it actually is making my father so much more effective in 2024. He was so effective in 2016, but, you know, he's also throwing so much lead in the air right now that they literally like can't counter narrative. And so between that and not having a coherent media and having the weakest Democratic Party probably in history, you know, he's just having a field day and doing great, incredible things.
I mean, this is going to sound like almost too like pat everybody on the back, but do you think he is better now than he's ever been? I mean, I watch him now, and it's not only the policies, which I've basically across the board have been, I think, phenomenal, but the way he responds to the media now, the way he's not taking the bait on certain things, still will hit them when needed. Like, it seems like he's just measured it out, and it's pretty damn perfect.
We went into Washington in 2017. I mean, we didn't know what a delegate was. I mean, Dave, we built hotels. Like, you know, I remember, you know, like a 22-year-old staffer came up to me, sir, you know, we'd like you to speak at the Iowa caucuses, you know, in 2 days. And I was campaigning all over the state. No problem, guys. Happy to speak anywhere. Put me on any stage, give me a microphone, I'm happy to speak. But what the hell is a caucus? Can somebody finally, you know, get somebody, you know, that's not what we did, right? Yeah. But yet we had an amazing voice. Yet, you know, you were able to speak about a person you really loved. You know, America saw a family on that stage, not just a candidate. They saw love, and they saw fight, and they saw work ethic, and that ultimately won the day. And there's no question we've all matured. I've matured in a major way. You know, I know what fights to pick, what fights to not. You know, I have a level of confidence that I never had before, and clearly my father does as well. One other thing, losing in 2020, and I say losing, right, because, you know, it's give me a break. No one actually believes that Joe Biden got 16 million more votes than Barack Obama did in 2012, a guy who didn't leave a basement, like a guy who couldn't put together a coherent sentence.
81 million votes. You see that chart.
Let's just do this. So losing in 2020 was actually the greatest thing that ever happened, you know, to us, in that now all of a sudden we have the House, we have the Senate, we have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court, we have, you know, obviously the executive branch, but we also, my father has a killer cabinet. I mean, these are people who are battle tested. They were the people who were there in the roughest times and never left his side, and they're having an absolute field day, and they can't be deterred. It's very different than, you know, 2018, where you had the Rex Tillersons who were running for the hills, and you had the, you know, I mean, I can name 30 of them that spent more time working against my father than they did actually working for the administration, despite how incredibly effective he was during those years. And so there's no question that there's a level of maturity. There's no question that all the chips are just lined up in a better fashion now. And man, the amount he's getting done is awesome to see. It's amazing to see.
So putting the politics aside for a second, what was on the roller coaster ride of running the businesses? Obviously, the businesses are, even before the lawsuits and everything, you know, your dad became so polarizing. How did you manage, okay, we've still got to sell hotel rooms. We've got all these other products. You know, now we've got a certain set of the country that's just not going to touch these things, that loved it, that loved all these products, you know, 4 years ago. How did you manage just sort of to traverse that landscape?
Yeah, and listen, you had 50% of the country that would walk to the end of Earth for, you know, for my father, and so listen, there's no question it came with challenging time. Were we canceled? Did a lot of group business, you know, go elsewhere because they, you know, frankly, it's obviously we became political, sure, but the exact opposite is happening now. I think we have the greatest brand in the world. I'm so fortunate to run the company. We're the best company that we've ever had by a factor of a lot, but they wanted to see us dead. I mean, every Fortune 500 CEO of a big bank was calling us up. Congratulations, we're canceling your accounts. Capital One, Chase, Bank of America. They were doing everything that they could to pull the rails out from under us. Every attorney general was attacking us and suing us. We were getting subpoenaed every single day. Tens and tens of millions of dollars worth, you know, or documents in discovery production on every front. The raids on Mar-a-Lago, the attacks on our employees, the attacks on, you know, me personally and everybody in the family. They were trying to divide the family. They were trying to split up the family. You know, that was the nature of the siege. And that's before they turned to physical violence, i.e. Butler, i.e. the golf course incident, i.e. Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, they wanted to do anything they could to silence our voice and put us under siege. And it's a beautiful story, and it's a story that we won, and it's a story I'm incredibly proud of. I'm not sure how many people would have had the backbone and tenacity to fight through what my father fought through and fight through what we fought through.
Let me ask you something. How much time do you spend every day clicking around on your web browser? Searching, scrolling, typing, juggling endless tabs. It adds up fast, right? Well, there's a new AI-powered web browser from Perplexity called Comet, and it's completely changing the way we interact with the internet. Comet isn't just another browser. It's like having a personal assistant that lives inside your browser and actually does things for you online. You can ask Comet to handle tasks, and it literally clicks, types, searches, and scrolls just like you would to get things done in the background while you go about your day. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book flights or hotels, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, pay bills, find promo codes, even unsubscribe you from spam. I tried it myself, and watching Comet actually do things in real time is wild. It's like seeing the future of web browsing unfold right on your screen. You can even check out the demo to see Comet in action. So if you're ready to take back your time online, download Comet today at pplx.ai/Rubin. That's pplx.ai/Rubin. And when you download Comet right now, you'll get a free month of Rumble Premium. Try it today and let your browser finally work for you. I know we've only got a couple minutes left. Do you miss that DC hotel? Because the vibe in that hotel during your dad's first go-around was so absolutely electric. And it's a Waldorf now. It's a perfectly nice hotel, but it's just not the same. Do you miss that at all?
Everybody tells me that, Eric, it's not the same. Eric, it's not the same. That was like the one bastion of conservative thought in all of Washington, D.C. So people just flocked to it. It became a frat party every night of the greatest people in the world. And no, I very much do. And hopefully we'll be back in some way, shape, or form in DC with some hospitality in the future. But no question, I miss it. And it was a great place during the first term.
Let me ask you one other thing, not book related, but sort of politics related, which is that I'm completely on board what you said before. The Democrat Party's been demolished. There's so many good things coming out of the administration. We're seeing a certain amount of infighting on the right now, which I think most of us are trying to calm everybody down, but there is some fighting there. I want what your dad created, this incredible wide tent MAGA. If you love America, you're in. We can set aside some of the differences. Are you seeing some of that? And what do you think we can do to calm it down? Because I think you and your brother outside of your dad can really help, put this thing together.
Yeah, there's no question. Listen, Republicans have always been interesting. Democrats always just march in lockstep. Republicans so oftentimes came out of business, came out of small business, were independent thinkers, had careers before politics, typically didn't just go right in, so many of them are, they're type A people, and, they believe in their way or the highway. And that's not a bad thing. I certainly do as well in my own life, and you probably do in your career, but oftentimes it's harder to bring those people together when their entire lives they've built incredible buildings and incredible industries and incredible careers and professions and everything else, doing whatever they did the way they did it. And so all of a sudden you have to follow the the horse in front of you, the donkey in front of you. Democrats are great at that. The Republicans are really bad at that, and they traditionally have been. But I will say we have the most united Republican Party that we've ever had before. My father's killed more rhinos than anybody in the history of rhino hunting. I mean, go back to the Ben Sasse days. Go back to the Paul Ryan days. Go back to the Mitt Romney days. I mean, let's go through all of them. The McCain days and the Cheney days, and my father has a perfect rhino hunting record. So I think we have got the strongest Republican Party ever. And one other thing, he's actually created a party that's willing to fight and willing to be loud and won't back down and won't put up with nonsense. They have backbone. It's very different than the Republican Party that you and I grew up under in this country, which was pretty much irrelevant and had no juice and had no message and had no love, and it certainly wasn't a movement. It was not the movement that Make America Great Again is.
The book is under siege, and I never thought I'd have to end an interview with Eric Trump by apologizing to Steven Seagal, but here we are. It was good to see you, my friend.
Hopefully I'm making him very proud.
I cannot believe I butchered that. If you're craving more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics, check out our politics playlist right here. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.